Welcome back to Golf Talk Canada. And whether you're listening to this on GTC Radio or you're going to view this on our digital platforms, we're welcoming now to Golf Talk Canada a friend of the show, as well as someone who's had a very busy week in the world of golf. And I know we've been trying to get a hold of you for a while now, but he's here with us. Laurence Applebaum joining us, of course, from Golf Canada. Laurence, thank you so much for the time. Before we get into what happened this week with the RBC Canadian Open and where we're at, also I want to touch base with you where we're at in terms of a participation angle, because I know our provinces are taking different angles towards how we're going to golf, when we're going to golf, etc. I want to know how you are, because I know you've been through a lot. You've been obviously big leadership role in this, and it's been a few challenging weeks, I can imagine.
Well, thanks, Mark and Bob, for having me on and for keeping everyone so informed. Probably the hardest part for everyone is without golf, we are struggling. We are struggling we're so anxious to get out there and play and anxious for news and the hard part is it's been so busy. It's been such a busy time for everyone, and thinking about all the listeners, their families, especially those folks who are working really hard as essential services or frontline people. We all know people who are in the middle of it or people who are dealing with it. So our first and foremost, our thoughts are going out to all those folks.
All right, Laurence, let's start with the RBC Canadian Open, and let's start there. How late in this process, obviously we had the announcement this week, but prior to this week, how late in the process were we as a governing body, being Golf Canada, still considering, still looking at the viability of having a national championship this year?
Well, the announcement, as you said, came earlier this week. But we've been in conversations and scenario planning for weeks, and actually in realistic terms, it's spread over months. And the PGA Tour, continues to show itself as best in class as far as a tour and a professional sports league / tour. The conversations we've had between the tour and our title sponsor RBC. Thinking and planning about how it is evolving from the early days, from the early days when we were hearing about this coronavirus in the Far East. And then as the weeks progressed and we learned more about the scale and the growth, and all of a sudden, a lot of people were actually focused on Tokyo. I think that's where sports people were starting to think about. And as those dominoes started to fall, the conversations got more intense, and the scenarios started to play out. The hardest thing for us was we had such an incredible 2019. It was, as you both know, RBC Canadian Open, third longest running golf event in the world, and it was going to be our 125th anniversary, and everything was really moving towards such a fantastic event at St. George's. I know you both were looking forward to covering it at St. George's and our partner at Islington for the practice facility. But all of a sudden things were coming at us from different spaces. And one of the biggest one was probably when the federal legislation came down with regards to the Quarantine Act and a hard border closing and essential services only going back and forth. And then when it came down to the mandatory isolation, which is today still in place, we don't know how long that will last, but the idea that anyone coming over the border, which would include all of the PGA Tour players, their caddies, their player support team, even the Canadians who are based down in Florida or based in the US, I should say, would have to do 14-day isolation. It just was one of those things that just became untenable for us to really manage.
When you look at it now, and I think I asked you this question earlier in the week, it's easy to sort of say, oh, well, it's sad. There's, the players won't be coming up here and the fans won't be coming up here, but there's a whole network of people that we're planning to help out in some kind of way here, whether they be volunteers or vendors or Some kid, I think I mentioned to you how Mike Weir talks about the first time he came to the Canadian Open, the first time he saw a professional golf tournament was at the Canadian Open at Glen Abbey many years ago. So the cancellation doesn't just affect the players and their caddies. It's pretty wide ranging, isn't it? Can you give us an idea of that?
Yeah, I mean the emotion that sort of really is the utter disappointment. It's been gutting for us, and I've been getting letters, mostly emails and texts, but I got an email today from a volunteer who had done it for 25 years. And this would be a seminal moment when you're 25 years volunteering. We had 1,800 volunteers signed up for this year, and amongst those folks, there a lot of them are retired or in an older demographic, and they look forward to this as a highlight. And this gentleman said, this would have been my 25th year. I was looking forward to getting the 25-year celebration. And he's like, I know it won't be this year, but it's going to be next year. and I was really encouraged by that positivity and the look, because we are hoping, and our goal is to be putting it on at St. George's and Islington next year in 2021. But I think about those people. I think about the vendors. I think about the suppliers. I think about the media folks, who, especially those in the golf media, who this is our major. Someone said Mackenzie Hughes, I think, said, this is my major. And how well so many of them were playing. Nick winning, Rory talking very consistently about returning and defending, and all those players that had St. George's, circled on their calendar. So, I feel for the fans. I feel for our players, and obviously for the organizations, not only Golf Canada and RBC, but all the organizations that really look forward to this. So yeah, it's a big disappointment, and I'm sort of thinking about you guys as well, and how you guys feel about. You both were there in 2010. Mark was trying to qualify that year, if we recall. It didn't go as well as we all had hoped. Do you remember, Mark? Started with a birdie, and then we should have just.
After that, it went sideways after that opening birdie for sure. Laurence, like last year was, I'm been very open that it was the best Canadian Open I've ever been a part of in any capacity. It was just a grand slam home run. You alluded to 2021. I know there's still some T's to cross and I's to dot, and I'm sure work to be done. And there's also no guarantees that the world is going to be what the new normal will be by the time we get to 2021. All that aside, just from a confidence level, how confident are you right now to say that what we had planned in 2020 will be able to take place at St. George's in 2021?
Well, a lot of these things, I think, depend so much on momentum, and we had this incredible momentum with the event. All of our metrics and all of our indicators. We had these two incredible concerts with RBCX. We had Chainsmokers coming on Friday night. We had Keith Urban coming on Saturday night. We had Richview Collegiate, which was going to be a phenomenal. What Richview Collegiate is obviously Bob's alma mater. I don't know what the team name was. What's the team name?
The Saints.
The Saints of Richview Collegiate, of course. We were looking forward to that being a site. So we had such momentum going, and that was wonderful. And then we couldn't have picked a better host club for the main event in St. George's. Arguably one of our finest locations, and always number one, number two, top one or two in the country. And then what Islington had done as a practice facility, as a place for the players and a place for the caddies and a place for the range, the reconstruction that they were in the process of. Together with those two clubs, we're continuing to work towards the momentum for, can we believe we're going to have, 13 months to build? And what we had, one of the members had said, it was our dream to bring the golf tournament here, and we're still going to have that dream. I feel really confident about we're going to get there, but we're going to work really hard with both memberships and both clubs to do that. And, I do have to mention the city of Toronto and the province is both parties. They've been behind what we've been doing. I think Mayor Tory has been doing an exceptional job trying to manage this crisis. And similarly at the provincial level, I think Doug Ford has done a very admirable job in this state of emergency. They've directed efforts towards health and medical services. They've directed things appropriately. It's about saving lives and people's health. But both those parties have been great, and we just hope that everything will continue forward. I felt a momentum shift happen this week. I don't know if you guys felt it, but it felt like the data was starting to point in the right direction. I'm optimistic more in the last 24, 40 hours than I've been in a while. So that's really good.
Laurence, in addition to the RBC Canadian Open, which is, I know, been the focal point for the last little bit, you guys run a whole bunch of other tournaments. You've got the Canadian Amateur, both men's and women's, the seniors, the juniors. You've also got in September the CP Women's Open out at Shaughnessy Golf and Country Club. Is this sort of a never-ending trail as the weeks and months go on, where you have to kind of keep looking at what's possible and what isn't?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Bob. Our professional championship schedule bookends the summer. The RBC Canadian Open, the start of summer, and Labor Day weekend was actually going to be is planned for the September long weekend in Vancouver at Shaughnessy. And we got some great indications. British Columbia as a province has not closed. We have not. We've been able to continue playing golf with incredible protocols that those golf clubs are putting in place. I heard Mr. Scully was on a bike trip to go out to British Columbia because he could still play there, but I'm not sure if that bike trip has happened or not. But I'm hearing good indications of what's going on in the Lower Mainland and British Columbia. The LPGA Tour obviously has updated their schedule as well, and with some adjustments of keeping things in North America. I had a great conversation with Mike Wan last week, and his players continue to look forward to our event, and it's a major stop. So big fingers crossed, things will continue well. And then our amateur championship season, we're mindful that competitive season starts early, but that really the bulk of it is in late July and August. And so as things go on, we want to make sure that we have great plans in place. We also have some contingency plans. We also know that golf courses, when they open, we want to be sensitive. They want to get out and play. They want to get out and play and also make sure that it's a receptive environment for people and people traveling into these places. But one of the first calls we did get yesterday when we announced the RBC Canadian Open move to cancellation was from the men's amateur winner who wanted to check in on his exemption and make sure he was still good for 2021. So we really appreciated him to remind us how much he was looking forward to. So.
Laurence, before we let you go, just to piggyback on participation in playing golf for our listeners coast to coast. I know everybody's different in each province. We spoke to Kevin Thistle earlier this week and spoke about the challenges with his association dealing, in each funnel that is each province and the different challenges. I'm assuming you're facing the same challenges as well, just keeping communication lines open, treating each province to its unique situation. Because like you say, BC is open, everyone else is closed. Alberta looks like they are lobbying and preparing for coming out of the other side already. I can imagine this is a full-time job as well, never mind just our championships.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most important issues that we're dealing with right now. And golf as a sport is, we're rule followers. It has a cadence and a protocol that lends itself well for the recovery. It also lends itself well for all the reasons that we love the sport is big wide open spaces, natural physical distancing, all those great things that I think is going to be really bode well for our return. people like Kevin Thistle at the PGA of Canada, people like Jeff Calderwood at the National Golf Course Owners Association, the club managers, their executive directors, Suzanne Godbehere and Catherine Wood, who oversees the superintendents. We've had weekly calls. We've had great collaboration. We want to work with we've continued our work with medical health experts across the country, and particularly on a provincial level, in helping us get back to recreational normalcy when it's safe. You know, we know that a lot of people are really in tough moments, and we're completely mindful of that, but we also want to have those protocols in place. So a small shout out to our team at Golf Canada and all the teams at golf clubs around the country who've been working on these protocols. We have a resource page at golfcanada.ca, which helps people know the protocols that are being put in place, the preparations that are being made. And I can promise you that everyone is going to be ready when it's safe to play golf again. And I know you guys are itching for it. We miss it. We miss. We're sad about the RBC Canadian Open, but we also know that when it comes back, it's going to come back in such a profound way. We're going to appreciate the bogeys more than we've ever had in our lives. So, you know, I hope you guys are staying safe, doing well, and thanks for everything that you do for golf.
Laurence, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. I know it's been challenging, and I really appreciate you taking the time with Bob and I and speaking to our listeners. And I'm sure we'll be doing this again as information and updates come out. LA, I will leave you with this. I will never complain about a slow round of golf again. That's for sure. You guys can leave me on a golf course as long as you want. I'll be very happy. And if Keith Urban is not available for 2021 for you, LA, I will put the band back together.
No one swings a left-handed axe like you, Z. You know.
Laurence Applebaum, CEO of Golf Canada, thank you so much for your time. We will be back with more Golf Talk Canada, and we will keep you up to date on all things as this proceeds to change over the next weeks, days, months, etc. to the Canadian golf community. This is Golf Talk Canada.